Hello, my name is Katie and welcome to my video. Today I'm doing my August book haul. Now, there's a lot of books in this haul, and this will not be the norm on this channel every month. I got a little excited with the ideas that I was having for content and things, and things got a little out of hand. So there's a lot here. Maybe get a drink or something if you plan on watching the whole video. And let's just get into it. I think I'm going to start with the books I got from Book of the Month. If you don't know, Book of the Month is a monthly service in which you pay $15 a month and you get to select a book from their curated list. Usually they have about 6 titles to choose from. I'm not sure on that totally. It may be different. But you pick from that list. They also have backlist titles that you can pick from. And then you can get additional books for $10 each. They also have like a bit of a rewards program. I think after a year you get a tote bag, you get a free credit for a book in your birthday month, things like that. I've been doing it for a couple years now and I really enjoy it. So I got 3 books this month. The first is The Space Between Worlds by Michio Kaku. I picked this because it's a bit sci-fi, and I like sci-fi and have been wanting to read a little bit more of it than I have been lately. In this world, multiverse travel is a thing. However, you cannot travel to any universe in which your other self is alive. Our main character happens to be very good at dying in other multiverses. So, she's chosen to be, I feel like it's something like some kind of spy or something along those lines, and she gets to travel to these other worlds. But then the other worlds that she still does exist in, those incarnations of herself begin to die mysteriously. So there's a bit of a mystery element as well. I might put this on my September TBR because the only reason I didn't get to it in August was because of the history challenge. So this might happen soon. The next book I got was The Night Swim by Megan Goldin. This is a thriller, so I don't know a ton about it. I just know that we're following a woman called Rachel who has a true crime podcast, and she solved a cold case, I believe, on her podcast. And the story begins when somebody leaves a note on her window of her car asking her for help. I don't know anything else. I don't want to know anything else. This, too, may end up getting read in September. I'm not sure yet. The third Book of the Month book I got is Atomic Love by Jennie Fields. This follows a woman called Rosalind. It is 1950, so we're in the Cold War, and Rosalind worked on the Manhattan Project. And for the past 5 years, she's been living with the guilt of her role in helping to create the atomic bomb. She is contacted suddenly by the FBI because a former lover has gotten in touch with her and they want her to spy on him. So I'm pretty excited about this. Depending on how things go, I may start reading it this week because it is historical fiction, so therefore it does kind of fit in with the theme of the history challenge. The next stack are books that I bought new. Usually if I buy something new, it's because I happen to see it while walking through Target and just can't be stopped. Or if it's a new release that I can't find used yet. The first 3 of this stack are books that I bought prior to the Shop With Me video that I did. I bought Katheryn Howard, The Scandalous Queen. I just finished this yesterday. I was reading it as part of the history challenge. It is book 5 in Alison Weir's 6 Tudor Queens series, and this is one of my favorites. I was very pleased to have read this. I enjoyed it a lot. The next book that I got, that honestly I'm probably going to start after I film this, is The Book of Lost Friends by Lisa Wingate. This book takes place in a post-Civil War South, I believe Louisiana? Yes. And I picked it up solely because it had the word book in the title, that's usually enough for me. The next book I got is Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid. I feel like this has been talked about a lot on BookTube recently. A lot of the reason for that is because it follows a black woman who is a nanny, I believe, to this young white child. And she is asked to watch her while her parents are doing something. And they go to a grocery store or something similar. And in that store, a white woman accuses her of having kidnapped the white child. Obviously, it's timely content for a lot of the things that are currently happening in the world. And aside from that, I just think it sounds like it's going to be a really good story to delve into, and I'm excited to see the outcome. The next stack here are books that I purchased from my Shop With Me video. These ones are books that I ended up purchasing new because I couldn't find used copies. Well, in one of the cases, I couldn't find a used copy with the cover that I liked. However, Amazon, being Amazon, damaged a couple of them, so I may as well have just gotten the cover that I didn't want used. The first of those is Empty Mansions, The Mysterious Life of Huguette Clark and the Spending of a Great American Fortune by Bill Dedman and Paul Clark Newell Jr. I talked about this, I believe, in the History Challenge tag video, and the main focus of the story is the author, Bill Dedman, sees this beautiful mansion that's for sale, and it's been untouched for decades, I believe. And he starts to do some research, and he discovers that this house is at the center of a battle for a $300 million inheritance. And Huguette Clark was a bit of a character from what I'm gathering, having read the synopsis, and I did a little sneak peek on the inside. So I'm really excited to get to this one, and I hope it's as good as I think it's going to be. The next book is The Diviners by Libba Bray. I've had this book on my TBR for years. This was one of the randomly selected books that I chose off my TBR, and I love these covers, except you see what Amazon did to it, so that was a sad day. I thought about asking for a replacement, but like the book itself is fine, and that just kind of feels wasteful, so it's fine. It sits like this on the shelf anyway, so no one's gonna see it. This takes place in a 1920s New York in which there's some paranormal things happening. We follow a girl named Evie who has some supernatural abilities. I'm not totally certain what they are, and she believes that she can help solve a murder using her supernatural abilities. I've been wanting to get into the series for a very long time, and now seems like a good time. I probably won't get to this till October. It feels like a nice kind of October read. The next book I got is a little bit heavier than I thought it was going to be. It's The Warmth of Other Suns, The Epic Story of America's Great Migration by Isabel Wilkerson. This book discusses the decades-long migration of black citizens who fled the South for northern and western cities in search of a better life. So this covers the years 1915 to 1970. I have heard good things about Isabel Wilkerson's book Cast, so I'm hoping this one will be good. This one caught my attention a little bit more than Cast did, so I'm really excited to get into this. I might try this on audiobook because it is quite long, and I get a little overwhelmed if nonfiction books are over 500 pages. It makes me a little scared to read it. The next book I got is a new release. It is Pull of the Stars by Emma Donoghue. This book takes place in Ireland in 1918, and we follow a woman who works at a hospital, and she encounters these expectant mothers who have contracted this kind of flu. So they end up quarantined together, and I believe this follows them over the course of only like 3 days. And I'm a little bit hesitant to read it right now because quarantine is hitting a little too close to home at the moment. But I think it'll be really good. I enjoy historical fiction, and then I enjoy things set in Ireland for some reason. So I think this will be really good. The next book I got is also a new release. I pulled this one from my TBR as well. I just got lucky, I guess, and then I got to get a new release. I don't know if that's luck, but that book is Afterland by Lauren Beukes. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that last name right. I should have looked it up. This book takes place in a world where men have gone nearly extinct, and we're following this mother and her 12-year-old son that she ends up having to take on the run in order to protect him. And that sounds so interesting. One, I love books with strong themes of motherhood and parents willing to sacrifice to protect their children, but also a world in which men are going extinct would be really, really interesting. Because, like, obviously, if one sex or the other goes extinct, that's it for civilization. So I'm hoping they delve into kind of what perhaps made men begin to go extinct and what that has started meaning for the world. This last stack is by far the largest. These are all books I got from Better World Books, and that's why it's so large, because their books are very inexpensive, and it just makes you think you can keep going. You don't realize that it's not about the money at that point. It's about, can I actually reasonably expect to read all these in any near future? The answer is no. So I'll be taking a break from buying books. I may get one or two new releases that I'm into next month, but we'll get into that next month. The first book I got is The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. This has been on my TBR for a very long time. This is another one that I pulled randomly. And I want to read it because it's a book that has been very highly regarded for a lot of years. I actually believe I remember seeing this book when I worked at a library in high school, being checked out a lot. I don't know a ton about this book. All I know is that it's historical fiction taking place sometime in the 12th century, and I believe we're following a monk who is trying to build like a Gothic cathedral. I'm a little intimidated because yes, this is the mass market paperback, but it's still over 900 pages. So it's going to take a while to get through, and the print, I don't know if you can see that, is quite small. But it's okay, as long as it's interesting and, you know, fast-paced, at least to an extent. I will be able to get through it, so. I probably won't be on my next month's TBR, and probably not October either, but maybe November. I hold hope for November. The next book I got was Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl. I wanted this book for several years. I've never read it, but I feel like it's something that everybody should read at one point in their life or another, just because of the content, and I know it's going to be quite impactful. So that's really the only reason I picked it up there. The next book I picked up was Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. This book follows a woman called Kathy, and when she was younger, she attended a boarding school called Hailsham. And we follow, I believe, we get like stories from her time at the boarding school, but then we also follow her a few years later as an adult, and a couple of her friends from the boarding school come back into her life. I have heard that this book is heartbreaking, and occasionally I like to have my heart broken by a book. So I am looking forward to reading this one. The next book I picked up was Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. This book is one that I've heard Olive from A Book Olive talk about a lot. And because of that, I had to pick it up. I also read The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield, and I really enjoyed that. So as long as the writing is on par with that book, I will probably enjoy this, because the basic premise is that there's this ancient inn on the River Thames, and a lot of storytelling takes place there. And there's one night where they are telling stories like they normally do, and a young girl is brought back to life. That premise sounds very intriguing. It has a bit of a mystery element to it, which I enjoy. So I'm hoping that this one will be as good, if not better, than The 13th Tale. The next book I picked up was another one that I chose randomly from my TBR, and that is The Grace Keepers by Kirsty Logan. I believe I put this one on my TBR probably at least a few years ago. I was reading a lot more young adult back then, and so I'm not sure if this one will have the same appeal to me now as it did several years ago, so I might wait until maybe I fall back into YA a little bit more. But the basic premise is it follows this woman. She's a grace keeper, and her job is to perform burial rites for the dead. She lives alone, I believe, on an island, and I tend to like books that have an isolationist element to them. So hopefully this will be good. I'm not sad I bought it. I think maybe I'll just wait for a time when this is more what I'm looking for. The next little stack here, I believe it's about 4 books, is history. We have Dreams from My Father, A Story of Race and Inheritance by Barack Obama. This is his memoir. I have a book of his speeches. I believe it's called The Audacity to Hope or something along those lines. And I thought maybe it'd be really cool to read this one and then read his speeches, because perhaps by getting an idea of what his upbringing was like and the things that shaped his life will help when I go to read his speeches to understand what point of view he's coming from. The next book I picked up has been on my TBR for a very long time, and that is How the Irish Saved Civilization, The Untold Story of Ireland's Heroic Role from the Fall of Rome to the Rise of Medieval Europe by Thomas Cahill. I tend to enjoy anything surrounding Ireland. It is my #1 travel destination. I have been told that that's a very boring travel destination because it's all rundown castles and like scenery. But that's why I want to go. I want the rundown castles and the scenery, and I want to be able to stand in a place that is one of my favorite things to research and just see if I can feel the history, you know? Maybe I'm crazy. The next book I picked up is Warmly Inscribed, The New England Forger and Other Book Tales by Lawrence and Nancy Goldstone. This book is a book about books. Lawrence and Nancy Goldstone write books about just the world of books, collecting and things of that nature. This book, they are looking into the stories behind books in certain library collections, one of which being the Library of Congress. I have been to the Library of Congress. I have my very own reader card for the Library of Congress. My husband got it for me for my birthday a couple years ago. It's actually probably expired now, but I'm going to keep it forever anyway. But yes, I have gotten to actually go in and touch the books and read the books, and that was probably the best birthday present I've ever gotten. The last history book I have here, I bought because of my mother. And it's called In the Kingdom of Ice, The Grand and Terrible Polar Voyage of the USS Jeannette. My mother's name is Jeannette. I bought this book because it has her name on the cover. But also because I like to learn about ships. I enjoyed Deadwake, which is a book about the last voyage of the Lusitania, and I feel like this may have some similarities to it, so I think possibly I will enjoy this one too. However, the reason I purchased it was because it has my mom's name on the cover. The last chunk, there's 4 of them, are all science, which I know is not something I've talked a whole lot about on my channel thus far, but that's mainly because the history challenge happened, so it was all history content all the time. However, I do enjoy reading about science a lot, so there will be a bit of that interspersed from now until I decide I stop making videos. The first of those science books is The Fabric of the Cosmos, Space, Time, and the Texture of Reality by Brian Greene. I don't know a whole lot about Brian Greene. I have heard him mentioned, and I believe I've seen him in a documentary, possibly. But I enjoy learning about the cosmos, and I've read a couple other books that I think will perhaps prepare me for the content in here. My one worry is that it's not going to be very beginner friendly. It doesn't even necessarily have to be like super beginner friendly, but there's a lot in the realm of physics and astrophysics that still flies straight over my head because one, I am not that smart, and two, I have not done that much studying on it. So I am hoping that I'll get on with this one. If I don't, I'll let you know. The last 3 science books are all by the same author. That is Michio Kaku. I have another book by him, and he is someone that I follow fairly closely. I've seen him in a lot of documentaries, and I believe I've heard him interviewed on a couple podcasts. I also follow him on Twitter because I find him to be very, very interesting. So the first one is Parallel Worlds, A Journey Through Creation, Higher Dimensions, and the Future of the Cosmos. I also have Hyperspace, A Scientific Odyssey Through Parallel Universes, Time Warps, and the 10th Dimension. And the one I am most looking forward to is Physics of the Future, How Science Will Shape Human Destiny and Our Daily Lives by the Year 2100. I love speculation about the future, especially when it's science-based, so I think this will be a really interesting read. Whew! And those were all the books. That was a very large stack. As I said in the intro, this will not be the norm. I got a little carried away. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have read any of these books and think I should prioritize any of them, please leave it in the comments below. If there are any books that you're interested in from this list, I would also love to hear that as well. If you like my content, then subscribe. Stick around and you'll get to hear what I think about all these books. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you